Howdy and welcome back to the Ineligibles podcast. I am Will Stone. He is Chase Caldwell, and he is Hayden Garland. We
Welcome,
have
Hayden.
a big announcement today. From today forward, Hayden Garland, also known as Producer Hayden, will be joining the show in a full time capacity as our third member of this operation. So, Hayden, it's great to have you.
I'm happy to be here. I've been listening since episode 1. I've been had fun listening to you guys, and whenever you guys said, "Hey, you want to come aboard," I jumped at the opportunity to do so. I was excited, so I'm glad to be here and happy to help out where I can.
I'm glad to have you along, Hayden. Been looking forward to getting you added for quite some time now.
Yep. You might know Hayden from the offensive line episode that he co-hosted a couple weeks back. It really saved our bacon in terms of the schedule, because we're trying our best to be as consistent as possible on Mondays and Wednesdays, and with Chase being coming back from a different country, we weren't sure what his travel plan was going to look like, so Hayden stepped in and performed admirably. So it's great to have him on, and we spent this past weekend plotting some things, scheming some things. We think this edition will make the show better in all facets, but especially from an organization standpoint. And I think we've always said that Hayden is kind of our the embodiment of our target audience. So having him along to provide input and in terms of segments and things to talk about and things like that, it's certainly valuable. So big time edition all around.
Well, and logistically speaking too, that didn't really come out. It'd be nice to have you to where you can help us monitor the comments and be the voice for our listener, because ultimately that's what we want the most of. But you always have great engaging questions, and that's what we've talked for quite some time about. We feel like we're kind of missing from the podcast. We don't want as much back and forth and more segmented spots. And so something that I've been really, really looking forward to. I'm glad to have you a part of the group, Hayden, and looking forward to it. And hopefully you can bring us some consistency so that people know when to expect us.
Yeah, I mean, if nothing else, that was my biggest gripe, is you guys weren't always on all the time. I didn't have nothing to listen to. So at least now I can help out with that where one of you's out, and I can step in where I can. But like I told y'all, I'm here to help out where I can, and this is in my eyes is still y'all's show, and I'm here to help out. And I feel like I'm gonna find myself lost in this thing, and sometimes I have to remind myself, hey, I've got to contribute here.
That's okay. That's quite all right.
I think the only downside to Hayden being on the show is we won't have him in the comment section anymore. So it's on you, Alante.
It's on you, Alante. Hold it down. And Pierce. If
my
mom's gonna watch now.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Oh, good. Maybe that's why we have 3 viewers today.
Here's Alante's comments. Says, "Welcome, Hayden." Game on.
All right. Well, let's jump right into it, shall we? Let's start with the hurry up, no huddle question of the week. Hayden, what do you got for us?
All right, guys. So we're doing SEC preview this week. So hurry up, no huddle question is, which SEC games are you most excited to watch this season? Not including A&M, of course.
Oh, which SEC game?
Yeah.
Ooh, like SEC on SEC?
I think just SEC team.
SEC team.
Just like just across the board, the entire SEC schedule. Which game are you most excited to watch?
Yeah. I'm really intrigued by I think Tennessee is going to factor into a lot of my discussion today, but Tennessee plays LSU from the crossover this season, and they also play Pitt again. They played them last year. I like both of those. I think if I had to pick one, I'm really, really intrigued by Utah at Florida in week 1.
Yeah, that one's one that I was looking at as well. I think most excited. I don't know. It's hard to say. I'm going to give 2 answers, even though I shouldn't do that. Game I'm most excited to watch would be Oregon and Georgia. I like that matchup a lot. So I'm most excited for that one. But in a different way, I'm most excited to watch Bama at Texas. Just because
I had that on my short list.
how that one plays out. So that would be my number 2.
Yeah. As far as Oregon and Georgia, do you think Oregon can keep that thing within a couple scores?
I think they can, and so that's why I'm curious to see. I don't know. I mean, Oregon's got to kind of hold it down for the Pac-12 at the moment. So,
you could have a disaster for the Pac-12 if Oregon and Utah both lose to SEC teams that day on opening day.
And then the Big Ten would be like, "You're not invited. You're not invited.
Revoked.
You can't sit with us."
Yeah, I think I keep forgetting that Bo Nix is at Oregon, and Auburn plays Georgia every year, so I'm assuming that Bo Nix has played against Georgia 3 times. And this will be his 4th time, but now he'll just be at Oregon, and they have Georgia's DC from the past few years. So, talent wise, obviously Georgia has the nod, but there's some interesting factors there in terms of Oregon. But
it'll just be a fun week 1 matchup.
Yeah,
right out of the gate, rip the Band-Aid off.
Yeah. So this is our SEC preview episode. We didn't have the bandwidth to really get into every conference, kind of like we did last summer. But obviously during the season, we're still going to focus on the whole country, not just the SEC. But the SEC is what we know the best, and we're going to look at some SEC non-conference games. There's some very interesting East versus West crossover games this season. And I guess at the end, we'll just go ahead and give our predictions for how we see the conference playing out this year. We put pretty minimal thought into these predictions, so definitely won't be as it was last year, where I think I don't have the list in front of me, obviously, but I think Chase got pretty close to nailing it in terms of the final finishing order in the West last year.
Did I really? I didn't even ever go back and look at it. I was like way off with the East though, because I think I predicted Florida to win the East. That didn't happen.
But you had Arkansas up there, and I think they finished 3rd. Obviously A&M didn't pan out the way we wanted it to, but I can't even remember. Like it's so competitive. I can't remember who finished last in the West last year. Like it had to be somebody. I think it was Auburn, but
I was gonna say, wasn't it Auburn?
It was barely though. It was like by like half a game or a game. But I did want to mention briefly before we get into the non-con games. I'm a big fan of Bill Connolly. Obviously, I bring him up all the time on this show, but he's the creator of the SP Plus rankings, which are very stats driven and looks at the entire country, all 131 teams, and his updated numbers for the preseason have every SEC West team in the top 30, with the lowest being LSU at 28. So Bama's at 1, A&M's at 8, Ole Miss is number 9, Arkansas's at 14, Mississippi State's at 20, Auburn's at 21. They may not finish there, but they're there right now, and LSU at 28. So definitely a highly, highly competitive division in the West this year.
Yeah, it's as it always is. But, we've dogged a lot on Auburn as of late, but they really might not be that bad of a team this year. So if that's what we're going to expect being the bottom of the conference, well, it's definitely going to be a good year for the SEC West.
Yeah. Alante asked, explain Ole Miss being that high. I think if we had Bill on the show today, he'd be like, "Yeah, they're probably too high on my numbers, but that's just it's what the formula said, and that's where they are." But his personal opinion probably wouldn't have them that high. I feel like most people probably wouldn't, but I think they're a top 15, top 20 team.
I think part of that's because they got some good transfers in the offseason.
Yeah, that's true.
And so SP Plus is really going to be very on paper.
Right.
And I think Bill Connolly would probably be the first one to tell you, like, yeah, that's not exactly how I see it playing out, but
yeah,
it's some sort of statistic to put out there,
Right.
Well, I think with a good one at that.
I was going to say with any ranking though, I mean, you have to start somewhere, right? You have to put something down on a piece of paper to begin with and say, okay, paper says this, right? But at the end of the day, it's all played out on field.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, absolutely. You got to start somewhere. You may say, wow, I had this team that high or this player projected to do, these kind of stats. No, it's not going to wind up that way. There's all sorts of things you got to consider as far as injuries and just how things play out. But yeah, it's that paper is just paper, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I think what's been difficult for him is like, how do you calculate transfers? I know in the past he's just like taking their production at wherever they were before and just plopped it into their new team and like tried to make that make sense. And 24/7 has like transfer portal rankings now, where like you can get like a 5-star transfer or a 4-star transfer, and before they didn't really calculate it that way. So it's the sport is in so much transition right now. It's tough to really find any kind of continuity with in things like that.
Sure. Well, it's just there's, like you said, there's so many moving parts that how do you get continuity? It seems like it would be so easy of just ranking the transfers, like you just said, but that's tough because like how do you rank? But there again, I mean, I guess before I even complete my thought here, rethinking it, because how do you have a 5-star guy come from 3A Texas school, versus coming from middle of Mississippi? Like, it's hard to compare those guys anyways.
I thought that was going to be an Arch Manning joke. He plays 2A in Louisiana.
I could have turned it into one maybe if I wasn't fumbling over my words, but as is life, right?
Yeah. Well, yeah. Let's go ahead and get into some SEC non-con games. It's not the best year. Like, there's some teams like Ole Miss plays Georgia Tech, and they don't do it till like week 3. But like that first true week of games, September 3rd. Obviously, the two we already talked about, Georgia and Oregon are playing at Mercedes-Benz. Florida is hosting Utah in Gainesville. But then after that, like, Arkansas is hosting Cincinnati. That's super intriguing to me.
Yeah, that's probably there's a lot of the non-conference matchups this year. I'm really excited about. Like they're really cool matchups in terms of, number one, teams that I don't know have played each other very often, but number two, teams that don't really, like, they're almost from two sides of the prism, right? Like, you got Georgia versus Oregon. Like, those are two completely different sides of the spectrum that will be fun to watch. I think us with Miami, it's a similar way, but Arkansas Cincinnati is very much that way.
Yeah.
And so that is one that I'm really excited about, because Cincinnati could come out and give the Hogs some trouble week 1.
Yeah, they could. And I'm kind of down on Cincy. Like obviously they've been tremendous the past 2 years. They made the playoff last year, but they had 9 guys get drafted, that which is a lot for anybody. It's especially a lot for a G5 team who's not like they're bringing in good players, but they're not bringing in like a top 10 class or a top 10 like a top 15 class every single year. But it's still a good program, and they're very well coached. So if Arkansas goes out there and screws around, it could be a bad deal for them.
Well, I mean, don't forget that Cincinnati was in the college football playoff.
Oh yeah.
So I mean, they might have lost some players, and sure they did, but I'm sure they have a little bit of a chip on their shoulder coming in at 23, something like that. They're like way down the incoming rankings. So they've got something to prove. How better to prove it than to beat Arkansas?
Yeah.
So they'll come to play for that game for sure.
Yeah. I'm not sure what the details on that deal are, but it'd be cool if Arkansas goes up there next year and plays at Cincy. That would be raucous. It's not non-con, but Arkansas, their first 7 games are not very nice to them. So they host Cincy, they host South Carolina from the East, which is we'll talk about that one in a minute. But their cupcake game is Missouri State, and the head coach of Missouri State is Bobby Petrino, who obviously got fired from Arkansas for having relations with a staffer. Then they play A&M. Then they play Bama. Then they play Miss State at Miss State. Then they play at BYU, another non-con game. Like, they didn't do themselves any favors in their scheduling.
Not at all. Them at BYU is going to be a fun matchup as well for the same reasons.
For sure.
So Arkansas probably has got one of the more fun schedules to watch. They got it easy at the end of the year, though. So if they can make it through week 7 with minimal losses, they could be a contender. But I don't know that that'll happen.
Yeah,
we'll see.
That BYU is a weird one. Like every other team in the conference is playing a conference game, and they're just for whatever reason going to Provo in the middle of October. Also, those two cultures are just a little bit different.
I'm not holding my tongue.
All right. So Arkansas, Cincy, Arkansas at BYU. They also play Liberty, which is interesting with Hugh Freeze. Okay, I keep forgetting about this one because it's in week 3. But Auburn opens the season with Mercer and then San Jose State, and then they host Penn State in week 3 after going to Happy Valley last season.
The battle of the white helmets with blue stripes. Yeah, I don't see Auburn winning that game. I think Penn State will have their number, but there again, we've really beat up on Auburn, so we might be very underestimating them going into this season. But is that the only Big Ten matchup we have?
Shoot, I think you're right.
Across the whole SEC, I don't see any other ones.
Yeah.
I might be right. If I'm wrong, I'm looking at 14 teams and their whole schedule at the same time. So give me some grace here.
Yeah. Well, there's 2 Pac-12. Obviously, A&M plays Miami. That's ACC. LSU plays Florida State. It's the only Big Ten team that I see on here.
Still a fun matchup.
Yeah. Which I've been wishing that A&M would play some Big Ten teams in the non-con, and we're scheduled out through 2030 something right now, and we don't have one on there, I don't think, because we play Notre Dame and Louisville and Arizona State, and I don't know. I'd love to see a schedule like a Wisconsin or a Penn State or somebody like that.
I would probably venture to say that Big Ten teams will be kind of frowned upon within the SEC for the next little while until we figure out who's the who's the true super conference. But,
That's true. You remember last season or last off season when they announced the alliance, and like the next week USC announced a home and home with LSU.
yeah.
That meant absolutely nothing.
Absolutely not.
But yeah, Penn State. That's another team that I'm kind of down on them too. Like I think they'll probably make a bowl for sure, but I don't see them really challenging in the Big Ten. But when you look at Auburn's schedule, it kind of reminds me of LSU's last season with I think they opened the year with UCLA. We were like, man, if they lose that one, it's going to be hard to get back on track. And if Auburn loses Penn State, they follow that up with Missouri at home, LSU at home, at Georgia, at Ole Miss, and all four teams are well. I don't think Georgia's a winnable game for them, but I think all four are losable if they go out there. If they're demoralized after Penn State and they can't get back on track, it could start to spiral a bit.
Well, and then they finished the year with Arkansas, Mississippi State, Texas A&M, and Bama. So, not very easy sledding for the Auburn Tigers this year. But we'll see if they can War Eagle their way out of it.
Yeah, I think that 2-game stretch where they play Penn State and Mizzou, like that may make or break them. Like if they go 0-2 right there, like that's gonna be bad, way bad.
That'll just make or break whether or not they go to a bowl game.
Yeah, or which would also mean whether they keep their coach or not.
Yeah,
which isn't looking good.
Well, any other non-conference games you want to touch on?
Yeah, I wish these two teams were playing or were at better spots than they are this year. But LSU and Florida State, I know LSU's favored by like a field goal. Mm-hmm. I don't know. I really want to watch that one just to get a feel for what those two teams are. Like, who's going to be the LSU quarterback? What's the offense look like? What's the defense look like? Are they motivated? Do they go out there and just whoop up on Florida State? Or does Florida State come out firing? This is Mike Norvell's third year there. Like maybe he's finally got things, the way he wants it, and maybe they come out hitting on all cylinders. But in just week one, we've got Florida, Utah, Georgia, Oregon, Arkansas, Cincinnati, and LSU, and Florida State. And what Alante just brought up, Mississippi State.
I was about to make that comment.
Goes to Memphis.
What do you think the over/under is for Mississippi State versus Memphis? Like total points scored.
Yeah, it's going to be up there. Well, and they lost that game last year. They played at Memphis, and they kind of got screwed by the refs and lost that game. So, I bet Mike Leach is. I bet Mike Leach is going to have his boys ready to play that day. But
yeah,
I've always liked Memphis. They're kind of like an App State. Like they're, in a lesser, quote unquote, lesser conference, but they're pretty dang good, and they're capable of beating several power conference teams. The week after that is weird, where Mississippi State goes to Arizona. I feel like a lot of the Southern schools don't really go out west that often, or ever really. So that's an interesting game. Even though I think Arizona was 1-11 last year, but they're looking up. Things are looking up at Arizona.
Yeah, we'll see.
We'll see.
Yeah, there's several. I mean, Auburn's playing San Jose State. That's not that much of a cupcake game either. You already talked about Arkansas and Liberty.
I haven't mentioned Tennessee Pitt yet.
I was about to say that. I mentioned it at the beginning, but that may be a game of two top 15 teams or top 20 teams
sure.
at least. I remember last season I crapped all over that game because Tennessee hosted Pitt. And I was like, man, Tennessee sucks. I was like, Pitt sucks. Tennessee sucks. Like, this is going to be a horrible game. It was actually a pretty good game. and they both ended up being like pretty solid teams. And now this year, I'm like looking forward to it. I look at week 2, and I'm like,
that is hilarious because didn't you call that as being like the worst game in the entire SEC last year?
It was my crappy game of the week.
Crappy game of the week, yeah.
But now it might be the best game of the week, because it's the same week as Bama at Texas. I think we know what may happen there. And it's at 11 a.m. So after that's over, you can click on over to Tennessee at Pitt and watch some good football.
Yeah.
Also, I don't know how I just caught this, but Vanderbilt plays Wake.
I saw that earlier too. I was going to point it out, because I'd like to see how Wake is this year, but it's hard to say with Vanderbilt. So
I was going to say I wouldn't use Vanderbilt as the benchmark there.
If they were playing anybody else, like Wake versus South Carolina would be a good matchup. But
it's funny because like those two teams are kind of like they're almost the same school. Like they're both black and gold, both small enrollments, private schools, very very smart, very nerdy.
Both of them are at the tail end of the alphabet.
Yeah. That's a great comment right there.
Both of them use a serif font on their logos.
They do.
Nobody's doing that.
We saw this in our so to pull the curtain back, we're in a college football fantasy league, a dynasty league, with 3 of us and 5 other people, and it's only Power 5 conferences. But the QB at Wake Forest, Sam Hartman, has something going on. We don't really know what it is, but he's not going to play for about a month or so. It's kind of like indefinite. But if he doesn't play against Vanderbilt, obviously Vanderbilt was not very good last year, but if they have some scrub at quarterback that's like throwing a bunch of picks, you could see that be a real game and maybe see Vanderbilt score an upset.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what to expect from Wake with him out, because I still have thought about picking him up even though he's injured.
Right.
Put him on my IR list, but we'll see.
Yeah. I'm scanning real quick just to make sure I didn't miss anything, but I think we got everything that's. I think
so too.
Important.
Kentucky, Louisville will be a good one at the very
Right.
end of the season. Of course, South Carolina, Clemson too. But
Florida
past
State.
that, like I think what I get most excited about is seeing teams like A&M, Miami.
Yeah.
That don't ever play each other. So that's what I'm most excited about.
Yeah.
Non-conference wise. Well, let's move into cross division. What cross divisional games are you most excited about?
Man, this is something that I picked up on when I was looking at the schedule, a few months back, and like obviously in the SEC, everyone's got their permanent cross division rival, and the other team rotates every year, and sometimes those games are really interesting, sometimes not so much. But this year, it seems like every game, with the exception of Alabama and Vanderbilt, is kind of compelling. Like Florida plays. I'm trying to scan it here now. Florida plays us. Oh yeah, they play us. Yeah. So like, for whatever reason, this is our 4th time playing them. We've only played Georgia once. We've only played Kentucky once. So like, I don't know if the SEC is like, we're going to try to make y'all, play each other all the time. But that's definitely one. But Kentucky and Ole Miss, I feel like those are very opposite styles. One's very physical and run the ball, and the other one's high flying and passing. Probably more so with Georgia and Mississippi State. And then most of all, I think we'll start with this one, but LSU and Tennessee. I really want Tennessee to go in there and win that game. Like nothing will make me happier. And like this is for like old or older college football fans, but back in like 2009 or 10, when like the one year that Lane Kiffin was the coach of Tennessee, they played LSU that season, and it was like a wild like overtime game, and like Tennessee stopped them at the last second, but they had 13 guys on the field, so they had to it was a penalty. Like LSU ended up winning, and it was just crazy as heck. So that's one I'm definitely looking forward to.
Well, that brings up a point that I was going to make whenever I'm sitting here looking at it. Looking at Alabama's schedule, They play at Arkansas, then they play us, and then they play at Tennessee, and then Mississippi State. So like they've got it's a 4-game stretch that isn't all that easy. And for us to be sandwiched in between two rather competitive away games for them,
right.
I like the way that sets up for us.
Yeah, because they have a pretty cakey start to the season with Utah State, obviously at Texas. You can think of that what you will, but then ULM, Vanderbilt, and then it's those games you just mentioned at Arkansas, host A&M, at Tennessee. So like things are going to get really real for Bama in that stretch. So they've got 4 games to get right. But who else was I looking at here? Week 2, Arkansas and South Carolina. I feel like those two teams like never play each other.
Yeah.
Yeah, I couldn't tell you last time they did. Like what that game happened. Like what happened in that game.
Yeah, I that's a good matchup. I like Mississippi State. Mississippi State at Kentucky is going to be a fun one to me, which you already mentioned that one. But that one's on my list here that I wrote down before we started. Let's see. What else
Kentucky plays both Mississippi schools.
Oh, do they? Well, good luck, Kentucky.
Yeah, they're at Ole Miss, and then they host South Carolina and they host Mississippi State. Mississippi State and Georgia is an underrated one, and I feel like a lot of people will probably write that off as like, oh, like Georgia's so much more talented than Mississippi State. But back in 2020 in the COVID season, Georgia like barely beat Mississippi State. It was like by a touchdown. Like it was back and forth the whole game, and they pulled it out at the end. So that's in Starkville. So late in the year, obviously Georgia's is super talented, but we know better than anybody you can't go into Starkville and mess around. So that's definitely one to keep an eye on.
Auburn and Mizzou play each other, so they'll be kind of playing for like who's the worst of the worst. You
know what I realized is we left out a non-con game that I actually liked. It's Mizzou at Kansas State. I think K-State could be pretty good this year. So if Mizzou loses that, oh my gosh, they go at Auburn and then Georgia at home and then at Florida. So they better they're probably really, really counting on beating Auburn. That's a tough stretch. And of course they're in the East, so they play Vanderbilt. But yeah, that could like both those teams' bowl eligibility could hinge on that game.
Yeah, even still, I mean, this is a very homer pick of me, but I think my favorite non-conference matchup is going to be us versus Florida this year.
Yeah,
especially if we beat Miami, and if we were able to beat Miami and Florida, that'll just be great for our recruiting.
That's especially with guys like James Coley on staff, who is very active in recruiting South Florida and all the Florida kids that are on the roster. So
and we got a coach that was like really involved in the state of Florida. His name's Jimbo. He very involved. So give him some bragging rights.
Yeah, he's not a big Gator fan, is he?
I don't believe so.
Yeah,
at least not from the last time we played him.
Yeah, I was trying to read his lips on what he was saying, and I won't repeat it on this podcast.
Yeah, this is a family podcast.
I'm sure Jimbo rarely curses like that, but he was just so fired up in that moment.
Yeah. I'm going to answer Alante's question. We've played every team in the East at least once, but there's been some that we've played more than others. Like we played Missouri a lot. We, of course, play South Carolina a lot. We played Vanderbilt a few times, Florida a lot, but Georgia, Kentucky, and even kind of Tennessee. We played Tennessee, 3-4 times?
I know twice. We played in the COVID year. We played them at home in 2016.
Mm-hmm.
And even as of today, Georgia has not been to Kyle Field, and A&M hasn't been to Lexington to play Kentucky. So I think
Yeah, but
I think we
the
go there
only
next
time
year.
the only time we've been to Rocky Top was the COVID year, and nobody
Yeah,
was allowed to go to that game. So
right.
technically, the fans haven't gone to that. But hopefully that'll be remedied in the near
Yeah.
future.
Actually, Hayden, if you can look this up, I think we play at Tennessee next season in 2023. So I think they kept for the COVID year they just did what they could, but they kept everything else the same in terms of future schedules. But this is kind of off topic. But I was looking at our 2024 schedule, and it's probably going to change once Texas and OU join the conference. But as of today, we would host like Georgia and Notre Dame and LSU. And like the rest of our SEC teams all that season. Like it was a star-studded lineup of home games at Kyle Field.
That would be nice. We're kind of missing those every now and then.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, we do play Tennessee in Knoxville next year.
Nice.
all right.
Appreciate that.
I know which game I'm going to next year.
Doing his job.
Yeah, I'm going to put that on the calendar as one that I plan on going to.
What about Miami?
Oh yeah, I'm going to Miami as well.
I'm probably not going to go to Miami. TBH.
I got 2 games
All right,
to
me
go
and
to
Chase
next
will have
year.
a lot of fun then.
Yeah, I'll have a lot of fun in Miami. That's for sure. All right, so let's break them down. Will, let's talk predictions. You want to start with the West, or you want to start with the East?
Well, the West is on there, so we're going to start with it.
I thought we were going in order. I just went with the next one.
I didn't see it. That one works. That works.
I looked over the screen. I saw West pop up. I was like, okay, we're going to do that one first.
All right, let's do the West.
Now, these are just, if I had to bet my own money on it, obviously I would love for A&M to win the West. But, picking today, I think I would put Alabama first. I don't think anybody's going to have an issue with that. But I do have A&M as a strong number 2. I feel like everyone is trying to find anybody else besides A&M to put as number 2 in the West, and really like the number 3 team in the conference. People are like, oh, like look at Kentucky or Tennessee or Arkansas or Mississippi State. Like these are all really good teams, but I think A&M is just better than those teams this year. So I'll put them 2, and I don't know if do you want me to do my whole 7, or do you want to?
Sure, might as well do the whole 7. That'll be fun.
So
and then I'll chime in whenever mine's different.
Yeah, so Bama 1, A&M 2. I'll put Mississippi State at 3. I think they're just a touch better than Arkansas. I'd put Arkansas 4th. Man, I guess Ole Miss. And I'll put LSU 5th. I'll put Ole Miss 6th, and then Auburn 7th.
I have similar. I've got Bama first, A&M second. Got Arkansas 3rd, and Mississippi State 4th. So I got those switched on you. And then I think I would go Auburn, and then Ole Miss, and then LSU.
Ooh.
Because even though we've dogged on Auburn a lot, I think, well, I say that. Now I look at their schedule. No, I'm going to put Ole Miss and then Auburn and then LSU. So I just think LSU's got way too much to figure out this year.
Yeah.
So, but Auburn does have a tougher schedule, so
Auburn.
I'll probably regret not putting them last.
I think this Auburn team reminds me of A&M in 2018. Like 2018, like when Jimbo first got here, like we could run the ball really well, and we could stop the run really well.
Mm-hmm.
We couldn't do anything else. We could not pass. We couldn't stop the pass. That's how I see Auburn this year, and that can win you some games. Like, even if they don't have the receivers that Bama has or LSU or these other teams. Like I think there's still something to be said in this conference for a team that can run the ball really well and that can also stop the run. So and get after the quarterback. So they could, after I feel like everyone in the country is dogging on them right now, and they could surprise all of us.
Yeah, and I think that's why like LSU is the one that I think is just going to be at the bottom of the list this year. If I put them head to head at everybody, it's like I don't see them winning that game. They play Tennessee and at Florida, so those are two pretty strong games. It's not Auburn. I mean, Auburn, of course, is playing at Georgia. That's a loss.
Yeah.
But I've got LSU last.
Yeah. Can we talk about LSU for a second? Like just for like 2 minutes. So I think we briefly mentioned their quarterback situation on one of our shows last week. I guess it was probably our most recent episode because we were talking about playing them. But they have a quarterback competition going on right now. Obviously, between they brought in Jaden Daniels from Arizona State. They've got Garrett Nussmeier, who they recruited. He's a Texas kid. And then Miles Brennan, who's been there forever and who started in 2020 before he got hurt. May have started like him and Max Johnson were battling last year, and he got hurt again. And then this year, I guess he just figured he wasn't going to get the job, and he just retired like 2 weeks ago. Yeah. And I was like, and obviously, like we're not Miles Brennan. We don't know why he did that or what his reasoning was, but I feel like that's really going to hurt them from a depth standpoint. Like he's the only one that's got experience in the league. And
you wouldn't want that going into your season. There's no doubt about that.
No, like he just
no matter who the starter was going to be.
And maybe it's injuries. Like maybe he like physically can't play, and like he tried to give it a go and couldn't do it. But they're really like, they could have a big problem at quarterback with, Jane Daniels, who I don't think can throw very well. He's a great runner, but and then Nussmeier's kind of the opposite. Like he's kind of a gunslinger, but not super mobile. But I don't know. And they have a good freshman too. But I feel less confident in their quarterback situation after seeing that the most experienced guy just gave up football 2 weeks ago in the middle of the camp.
Yeah, I'm with you. I'm definitely with you there. And again, I don't know what the situation is. I don't know if it's injuries. I don't know, so I'm not going to speculate. I'm not going to put him down for that decision, but it's definitely not what you want if you're an LSU fan.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, that would be like if Max Johnson just came out right now and said that he's retiring from football.
Yeah.
That would be really nerve-wracking. So,
but okay, we have 2 quarterbacks again.
Right.
Like last season.
But it would be like last season was, where all of a sudden, we're without a quarterback. And so definitely don't want that for your team. And that's a lot of the reason why I'm just down on LSU. I just think they have too much changing right now that it's just going to be a tough year for them. I don't think it'll be like that forever. I think no matter what I'll say about Brian Kelly, I think he'll still build the program up.
Yeah.
But this isn't going to be the year that I expect that.
Yeah. I'll say one quick thing about just to be an A&M homer here for the next 60 seconds. But the more I think about the team we have this year and looking back at last year, in our 4 losses, they were all competitive into like late into the fourth quarter. And, we would turn the ball over, gave up a big play, and, ended up sealing it. But when I think about how, like, especially against Arkansas, where the offense is just completely out of sorts, we have O-line injuries. We're trying guys at different spots. Freshmen are making their first ever starts. It was just bad. Like, it just wasn't cohesive whatsoever. And now I think, like, we actually have depth on the O-line. The O-line is, has played together, and they're more put together. Our quarterbacks are going to know the system better. Our skill talent's better. I just don't, like, everyone wants to talk about, like, A&M's going to go 8-4 again. Like, I just don't see it. Like, I don't see that at all. Like, things would have to go really, really poorly, and we have to, like, lose half our team to injury to go 8-4, in my opinion.
I agree with that wholeheartedly. I just don't see how we go 8-4 this year. But there again, I mean, I get I get why they say that, because that's how I would probably go in any season. But this is by far and away the number one season that I've ever gone into, knowing that we're going to get more than 8 wins.
Yeah.
Like, there's no doubt in my mind about it. So, and that's probably why a lot of our other fans have been really beating that drum as of lately, because they really won't be able to after this year, I don't think.
Yeah.
I think this is the year that we get a 10-win season under our belt. So we need that. It's been 10 years. Like, it's time. So,
yeah. And here in the weeks leading up to the season, like, you can see people from other fan bases still saying, 8-4, 8-4, you're gonna suck this year, blah blah blah, and they're trying to get it in while they can, because once the games start and they realize that A&M's got a pretty good team, they're gonna be like, ah, crap, like, and they're
overrated.
young.
They're overrated.
Yeah.
That's
why I all I want is just one natty. I just want one natty, and I'll rest on that laurel for the rest of my life if we get one natty.
Yeah, and we can start the A&M network and just play it every third day.
I'm definitely buying it on DVD.
Oh, no doubt about it. Gonna screen record it off of YouTube.
Yeah.
Well, let's jump into the East. Let's talk East for a minute.
Fire it off, Hayden. Yeah, there we go.
There it is.
All right, I think we're both gonna go Georgia at the top, huh?
So I was wanting to start at the bottom.
Oh, okay. Well, more on that later.
Yeah. So I'm going to put Vanderbilt 7. Although I will give the caveat that I think they are a program on the rise. Obviously, they took their lumps last season. They actually had a pretty good recruiting class last year, and I think the coaching staff they have is going to set them up pretty well. But for the season, yeah, they're going to be 7th. After that, I'd put Missouri. After Missouri, I would put Florida, and then so 7 Vanderbilt, 6 Mizzou, 5 Florida, 4 South Carolina, 3 Kentucky, 2 Tennessee, and 1 Georgia.
I would flip South Carolina and Florida, and Tennessee and Kentucky. I think you see Kentucky end up 2nd in the East this year. So going down from top to bottom, for me, I would go Georgia, Kentucky, Tennessee, Florida, South Carolina, Mizzou, Vanderbilt.
So in terms of if this was livestock judging, like, we have the same cuts.
Yeah, definitely have the same cuts.
We've got them flip-flopped.
No doubt about it. Yeah. Which is just minimal point loss there for sure.
Yeah.
So,
to turn this into an A&M perspective, if in terms of getting to the playoff, obviously, if let's assume a loss to Bama, you win the other games, you go 11-1. Bama goes to the SEC championship, and if they play an undefeated Georgia, both those teams probably get in. But I feel like at least one Georgia loss would, if Georgia lost to like Oregon or Florida or Tennessee or somebody, and then lost to Alabama in the championship game, I feel like that would kind of knock them out, and then A&M and Bama would go to the playoff, and then whoever else the other 2 teams are. But I feel like as an A&M fans, we should probably root for Georgia to lose. Well, obviously root for Bama to lose all the time, but root for Georgia to lose, like pretty much just root against them in every single game, because they're going to have that cachet of getting into the championship game or getting into the playoffs if they're undefeated.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, our best path to the playoff is to win.
Right.
But in the worst case scenario of Bama goes undefeated, they're a 1 loss. Yeah, Georgia's got to drop a game for us to get the nod over them, and that game would ideally be against either Florida or Mississippi State. which are both teams that we would play and beat in this scenario. So, if they lose to Florida or they lose to Mississippi State and we beat Florida and Mississippi State, that would be our best bet, because then we got two 11-1 teams there between us and Georgia. We beat the team that beat them, and then if they lose to Bama, we have the same loss, but we get the nod over them from the standpoint of we beat the team that beat them.
Right. In week 3, they're at South Carolina.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm just saying.
Oh, South Carolina too. I forgot about South Carolina. So one of those 3, and they play Auburn as well. So one of those 4, if they drop one of those 4, that'll be the best case scenario for us.
Right.
But hopefully, the best case scenario for us would be to just win everything.
Just win every game. Yeah,
it's not in question. So
but especially if that Bama game's close, like if it's a close, like last second loss, and I think like we talked about last week, like the rest of the schedule will give A&M some benefit of the doubt. Like, hey, like they beat all these other good teams, and they had a close loss to the best team. Like, I think they have a case to get in. It's not like in 2020, everyone wanted to invalidate all of our success. Like, oh, like, Auburn fired their coach. Like, they're not very good. But like all that kind of crap. But, the middle class of the East is super interesting. Like, I'm not sure if you've seen the stuff with the quarterback at Kentucky, Will Levis, but he's getting like first round draft pick kind of love. And I don't think it's because of his production. I think it's just because of his ability. But obviously his ability is very good, or they wouldn't be, like he wouldn't be getting that kind of recognition. So that's interesting to see if like, a team like Kentucky, who's typically kind of struggled on offense a little bit with a good defense, like what if they start lighting it up? And then they could be a team that challenges Georgia or beat somebody they're not supposed to. And then Tennessee, like, Tennessee's kind of my, not really dark horse, but they're that team. They're kind of like 2013 A&M, where they're just going to score a ton of points, and they're going to have the ability to, they're probably going to beat someone they shouldn't and lose to someone they also shouldn't lose to, and have that kind of season.
Yeah, that's a fair point on Tennessee. But it's going to be a fun season to watch if you're a Tennessee fan, I think. I think they're going to have a pretty good year. But yeah, ultimately, I think I can't wait to see how it plays out, because it really all hinges on us on, do we beat Bama or do we don't? As of today, I don't think we do, but I might change my tune in about 12 days.
Yeah.
So
I've got a question for you. Say if A&M beats Alabama but drops another game somewhere else, like just to some random SEC opponent, let's say Ole Miss or somebody. So we go to the SEC championship game and have to face Georgia. How would you feel today about playing Georgia in terms of like confidence that we would win?
I'm less worried about Georgia than I am Bama at this moment in time. But that'd be a tough game. But that's kind of, for me, if we do finally crest that hill, I want to earn it. So I don't want to play Kentucky for the SEC championship.
Right.
And then everybody, you just nonstop hear about, oh yeah, well, it was a down year for the SEC. I don't want to hear that. So
yeah, I guess I said to root against Georgia, but don't root against them so hard that they don't make the conference title game. And then you're stuck playing Tennessee or Kentucky, and everybody's like, oh, like did you really earn it? But
I'll take a championship for a natty no matter how it comes.
That's true. Yeah,
that's true. Well, in that case, we can move back to the Big 12.
Yeah. We would have been
maybe not anyway.
At least 3 or 4 playoffs by now.
Well, Hayden, you got anything to add on any of that?
How's your first episode?
Second episode. Thank you.
Your first official.
First official.
Yeah.
I think it's all right. I steered y'all. I got to get a look up in here. I think I was a little late to get some of those questions answered that I think y'all were asking and wanting information on. And I'm not sure how to get that to y'all without like chopping y'all up and what y'all are talking about. But
yeah,
we'll work out the details.
Yeah. It's a learning opportunity. So
yeah. Room for improvement.
For sure.
Yeah. Also, his first day is today, and then he's leaving, and he'll be out all next week.
I'm out on Wednesday too, but well, no, I guess I can do Wednesday. I'll do Wednesday show with y'all. I fly out early, but I guess I'll do Wednesday show.
Have you cleared that with HR?
No, me and HR are not on the best terms.
I don't blame you.
Don't ever talk to HR.
I don't blame you.
Yeah. If you have any trouble out there, just email HR@theunultimates.com.
Yeah, and they will get back to you instantly. It'll say Miller Damien, but that's the head HR guy.
Damien, that's who I'm talking to.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh shoot. Well, man, like I'm already like. First of all, this is already an awesome addition to our show. But now I'm even more excited for week 1 here in 12 days.
No doubt. If you haven't seen the Cold Cheddar video,
oh my God.
I watched it at least 12 times today.
Whoop. And I'm glad that A&M, I love those years that A&M plays on a Thursday, and then I've got the rest of the weekend to watch all the games with my undivided attention. But I am excited.
I wish we would get back to that for sure.
Yeah. But I do like that we play Sam at like 11.
Yeah.
And then I'll have all afternoon to watch Georgia and Oregon and Ohio State, Notre Dame, and Florida and Utah and all these other games. Like it's a pretty nice slate for week 1. But
definitely.
Well, appreciate it, guys. Hayden, good to have you. Chase, is good as always. We're talking. We're doing Q&A on Wednesday, so make sure you tune in for that. We'll probably do obviously answer some live questions, but if you have any burning questions you want us to get to, go ahead and send those to us. You're probably on a phone number basis with at least one of the 3 of us, so just shoot us a text message. So but thank you all so much, and we'll talk to you Wednesday.